All right, we're rolling on this online clinic weekend. Coach Eric Vaughn is back, offense coordinator John Burton, with his unique wing raid offense that kind of appeals to everybody, I suppose. Wing T, air raid, spread, whatever you want to call it. Coach, thanks for being here once again. It's been kind of a few years, but you're back representing my Bears team.
Yeah, it's been a while, and I dug this out just for you.
Yeah, I had my stuff hidden too, but now it's back out too. It's out in the closet.
Yeah. I'm actually, following on Twitter again. I feel like I can open this relationship back up and address my childhood hopes and dreams.
Well, hopefully, we'll see what Ben Johnson can do, but it's for once they're spending money that they have, but they're spending it finally. But good quarterback, everything else. As long as they get some old linemen, they'll be okay, I think.
That's my biggest concern, is that we latch on to shiny objects instead of just understanding that we've got, like, there's a good core. Let's literally, like, buying into the O-line would start us on the path to being contenders. And I'm not saying contenders for Super Bowl. I'm just saying, like, contenders to be consistent, right?
Right.
So I don't know. I don't want to talk about it too much because then my blood pressure gets up, and we gotta talk about, like, things that won't make me frustrated or mad for the rest of the day.
Yeah, we'll move on to that. So Coach is going to present here. So just kick back and enjoy. Any questions, put them in the comments, or if I have questions, I might chime in. But Coach, the floor is yours.
I'm going to share first before we get into everything. I'm going to share a sample of this, because a lot of people ask, what when I was on years ago, I was still, I've been coaching. This would be my 21st calendar year of coaching. And when I say coaching, I mean 21st calendar year of coordinating. And even back then in COVID, I was in a weird situation. I don't want to let's fix that. Wasn't a weird situation. I was coaching with a really, really good buddy of mine at the time, and he was a single wing guy. So I had to kind of readdress some of the things that I was wanting to do. But I found a really good sweet spot with combining a lot of his single wing stuff, which I don't care who you are, air raid or not. The single wing is fun to coach. It just, like, it is. I don't care where you stand. I don't care what card carrying member you are, whether you're air raid, wing T, it doesn't matter. Like, single wing it's fun to coach in. It does get repetitive, but it's fun. Because it does put you in a position to where when you are physically outmatched, there are ways to stay in the game as long as defensively you're pretty good, right? So I was in a spot where I was trying to just kind of evolve my, shotgun wing T stuff back in the day. And when I left where I was when we did our last podcast together, which still to this day, everybody I've talked to, I love them to death, but that was the funnest podcast that I've done. Just because you approached, today's a little bit of a sprint, right? But normally you're really good with banter and talking, and you just kind of leave it open, and so it was just fun to do. So I've evolved a little bit, and this is what the risk coach now looks like for me. It has Buck as, the number 2. I always leave my draw up top. It's 0 through 9. series. It's what I call a base 0 series. I always leave it up top because there are you don't tag draw, but I can tag buck, I can tag GT, power counter, ISO, all the stuff. So when I lay it out in the risk coach now in what you see in the wing raid, this is what it looks like. And this is the system. And today, I kind of asked you, like, what are we going to talk about? And you said concepts. So before I get there, I just want to kind of brush over like how this is structured, right? So now in the wing raid, I have to be very careful because even my buck is really more pin and pull. So like I have to walk the fine line. It's almost like walking the line between the inside zone and duo guys, of trying to keep both sides of the aisle happy. And it's also like trying to say that I still run buck sweep, but sometimes it could be center and a backside tackle pulling, right? Or it could be guard, center, and a backside tackle, or 2 guards and a tackle, or it could be like 3 people plus an H. So it could be like super buck. I don't know if you want to call it that. Really, I just have very simple rules for it because my problem is that being married to buck sweep from spread sets, right? So not traditional under center wing T type stuff, is that you start to get all of the funky looks, and then you have to have 38 42 57 tags to try to make sure that the right guy is pulling, or there's no puller, and then it just really turns into like a one-man power sweep type play. And I just got rid of all of that, and now buck to me is you have gap away or you pull to play. Now obviously play side, someone in person is what I say. I don't want to say in man because then a tight end with a wing outside of him is not the end person, right? So he might think he's the end. So now I got 2-on-1 on a defensive end. But so, anyways, that's my rules for buck now is just literally gap away, pull to play. If you don't have anyone in your inside gap or head up on the next man, like a down block, it's gap. I mean, technically, as coaches, to say it correctly would be gap down, away, or pull to play. But I always just teach it gap away because they understand a gap block for us is going to be inside shade or outside shoulder, next man down to head up, right? So just so that because a lot of people reach out to me on X and in the Facebook groups and Messenger on Facebook and ask for things still all of these years later, just off the few podcasts that I did, is either during or right after COVID, that time period. But I just thought maybe in this one, before we got into like how what we're going to talk about today, is just, hey, this is the update of what we do, right? So for me, and again, I want to focus on past concepts here in a second, but like this ties into what I'm going to kind of talk about with past concepts today is my plays are plays, my tags, I try to make them as simple as possible, right? So if we start to get like say we get an odd split, right? So it's even if it's a bear front, right? 303 type deal where we got head up on the center, 2 outside shades on the guards, and we want to run buck. Our guys know immediately to make cat call, and that's center and tackle, right? Cage call is center and guard. Gas is I'll draw it up if you want to later as just a side note, but it's where both guards it's almost like the clown play from wing T, where both guards are pulling, they take 1-2 plant, and then it turns into like almost like GG counter the other way, but it looks like buck sweep this way. Usually when you run gas, it's a quarterback run with a full fake, and it's like 2 full steps of the guards opening up with that plant is the 3rd step pushing back, and one's kicking, one's wrapping. So it's what gas is. Kick is kick. Chop is when we run power and we want to like kick away from where our sniffer is, because you'll see when I start drawing up on the iPad for the pass concepts, I base now more out of 2x1 with a sniffer. So, 11 or 20p approach, if, for the coaches that want to get technical about it. But for me, if I want to run power, same side power, but I've got my H away from the side that I want to run power, they just make a chop call. The center will kick out and the H will wrap. So that's a little peek at the run game. What you see in the black and the white is how we tag our single side or our twins trips side. So solo, obviously single set's going to be your twins trips formation guys, and they'll get their own calls in however we signal that in. Sometimes in the read game, I'll tag it with yellow cards, or we'll tag letters, or we'll tag states, or whatever we want to put on the risk coach. Right now I just have it all as numbers, because in the base way that I teach it, this is how I teach it by series. So I take the run game series of the wing T and kind of hybridize it into this, so it doesn't technically match up to like 129 as buck sweep in the old 129 121. Well, my 20 series technically is all GT plays and tags, right? So that's how this is just the base way that I'm teaching it from now on. So we can tag letters for reads and RPOs, but I always like to do RPO left, right to go with a run, because sometimes I will RPO to a play side. Doesn't always have to be to a backside. Screen game is traditional slip screen. Our slim is it's slip, the slow screen. I'm air quoting. I'm sharing my screen so I can't see my camera, but I'm air quoting. Slim to us is slip screen, slow screen, right? Slip is slow outside release left or right. Slim is just slow release middle. So they just know it is slip, but it's to the middle. Torch is what we call the popular swing screen now, where the sniffer's just releasing out and everyone's stalk blocking, and it's like an accentuated, very steroid based rocket toss. I mean, we're just catch, turn, literally throwing on the run, and that's it. There's really no drop. It's just getting the ball out. So that kind of brings us up through the screens, and I could go over all of that, but this is how it's broken down. Now, I use all of my 90s for quick and vertical passes, but technically I only carry 4 quick game passes, and I only carry 4 vertical passes, and that's it. I can tag different things in this, but technically, if we want to say tag, like pig for me, and we'll go over that. Pig is Mills concept to coaches, right? But pig tells us post dig, right? And that way I don't have to worry about explaining to them like who Ernie Mills was and what that meant to Steve Spurrier when he was at Florida, and all of these things, and why it's called the Mills concept. They just know pig post, P post, because most of our vertical game is always going to be post first, trying to stretch the field on a skinny post, and we'll start drawing that up in a second, and then whatever is tagged to it, right? So it's very simple. Now, obviously, we have our box pass. I picked that up from Coach Matheson in Oregon, and really, it's just it's a variation on curl flat that I fell in love with, because I was really good with my quick game. Stick snag works the flats really well, and once you spend enough time getting used to that, you can teach that very quickly, especially because the two are sister concepts. They're attacking the same triangle, just different people, right? And we'll draw all that up in a second. I'm good with my vertical stretch pass game, with trying to make it known from game film and first couple of plays that, hey, yeah, we're going to try to hit this skinny post for any of the single high coaches that are trying to invert down into the box for the run game. We're going to take that shot, right? So how do you align to it? How are you aligning to take it away? Are you, maybe your corner's now off at 8 and now he's 2 to 3 yards inside. How does that open up for us on, some screen game and things like that, right? So it's all about numbers and space. And but I was lacking this intermediate approach, and when I would go back and look at my hit chart, it was like feast or famine in this area past stick snag and anything where it was a dig at 12 yards or whatever, or sail route, flood type thing. So when I adopted box, it was just like this light bulb switched for me. So again, I use the 90s for the pass game. So it's kind of, I don't, for anyone watching who's like purist, that's like air raid purist or wing T purist, right? This is a hybridized system. So it's not that I'm stealing it. It's really my way of giving a nod to both systems to say, this is the influence that you had on me through my career of, learning how to establish a really good run game, have a really consistent pass game with, accelerators in it and be able to move the ball. So this was kind of this is how I approach the game now from an offensive standpoint when I teach it by series. And so that way they know the 80s is always going to be screens and boots, because it's some kind of, either run action. And before I go into the pass, real quick, last point. For me, I always schedule the same amount of time for screen period as I do run period in every practice, because the screen game to me is run, and that's why it's in the same family as the boot pass, because to me it's like having a whole other section of run plays that I can have that we practice as much as our core runs, right? Because of the 8 that are listed there, I'm not going to run all 8 of those every game. Can I? Absolutely, because it's not hard. But again, it's just, what can I be really good at? Same thing with screens. We know going into a season just off personnel, like who's going to be our kid on the edge that's got really great hands, maybe not big enough to be the running back, maybe not, a really tall kid that's playing like an H or like a bigger frame kid. He's just like a scat kind of guy that you put out wide and maybe put in the slot to see if you can get some matchups if someone wants to go to man, or you're really putting a lot of stress on safeties if they want to go too high with vertical and dig, or a post and a dig, and those kind of things. So screens to me, I move them into the 80 series with RPOs because to me it's all run focused in my mind. I don't differentiate screen game and run game at all, and haven't for several years. And 2021 was the first season that I committed to that kind of thought. And, that season was awesome. We had an all-state wide receiver. And when I went back to the hit chart, it was like 60% of our passes were 5 yards and less. And 70% of that 60% were behind the line of scrimmage on different screens and things that I did to get this kid the ball. And he ended up being first team all-state. And we did very well that season. But that was the first year where I was like, hey, I need to take this approach to where screen game is run game. So with all of that being said, let me share the iPad screen. All right, let me know if you can see that.
Yep, got it.
All right, good deal. So for me, I leave my X and Y the same. I don't move them around. X left, Y right. That way, number one, if we want to play really fast, uh, it's very easy because just unless they're running like some sting route across the field or something, usually they're in a place where they can get back to their side of the field pretty quickly. And how I signal that, and again, I mean, it doesn't matter who sees this because it's very simple. We just have some. It's either one of the like eighth graders or kids on the team, doesn't matter, but they just hold up an X or a Y, like it's a board with X or Y. They hold up with one hand, and then our signals for how the Z lines up that's where it's so like X twins, they move their hand like they're rocking a baby. So if it's Y twins, it just puts the Z over. Right. And then we have a deuce call and other things, but I'm just going to work out of twins for most of the what we're going to talk about today. And then I use color boards with letters or symbols for our backfield. Right. So there's an orange, black, red, blue. And that's just right or left focused for the T. And then the H is going to be tagged, off of that call. So that way, now we've kind of had a look at run game, kind of, and anyone interested can pause it and look through the plays. And again, if anyone has any questions, that if you're watching this and you're like, well, what is a shark screen? What is, gator screen? Just send me a message on X. Coach will, vouch. I love to talk football. Mm-hmm. So if you hit me and it's like 10:30 p.m. Eastern time or even midnight, most of the time I'm up. I'm usually up late, up late, up early. Sometimes I'll crash out with the wife a little bit, earlier in the day. Because I'm a non-faculty guy and have been my whole career as a coach. So my time schedule is a little bit different. I don't have to get up and do any of the bus duty that you guys are forced to do, but we won't talk about all of that. So box for me. This is a concept where, especially when we get single high, because I love to dictate to them a pass threat so that the number 2 defender, again, when you guys are listening to me talk over the next few minutes with passes, I don't teach. And again, this is a different take that I have. I don't teach positions on the field at all. Okay. So left side to me, whoever the first, second level defender is from the left side is L1. And then every second level defender just goes up in number. Okay. I don't teach nickel spur versus, blah, blah, blah. I don't want my quarterbacks to think about that. They don't care. I just need them to know who's what we're doing, because for real, for me, I don't even teach a read. I'm purely progression based, and I use the modern air raid approach that you'll hear. I think, oh my gosh, his name just went right out of my brain. He's on tomorrow evening. He's like the last coach.
Oh, Stan.
Golly, yeah. Bro. So Stan is in the same. He's like 20 minutes away from me. Whenever he's in Tennessee, he's literally like 20 minutes away from me. But I use the same approach that he does with accelerators. Like, so you throw stick until you can't, or you throw like the shoot until you can't, or whatever. And that's what I do. Is I'm progression based. So like, catch the ball, punch, plant, and when I look, can I throw it? I'm going to throw that until it's cloudy or until I feel like it could be contested, and then I go to the next thing. And that's the way I teach it. I don't teach a read. I don't, because again, after doing this a while, I don't need to I don't need my quarterback to tell me how to build the watch. I just need him to tell me what time it is, if that makes sense to those listening.
Mhm.
So for me, I base it off of, who's the number one defender. Okay, who's the number two defender? All right, and we know that if I go twins and they want to stay single high, right? So single high is always going to be a free. If there's two high, it's a left safety, right safety. Most of the time with this, we're going to get a 6-man box with, and I'll put this guy, my sniffer, I'll put him in a wing so that their number two defender has to be ready for anything to the flats. He can't fully 100% commit to the box. Now, if he does, we got some stuff for that, but I'm not getting into that right now. What I want to focus on is starting off with, because look, there's 100 million things you can watch on stick, 100 million things you can watch on snag. Snag, the only thing that I do different, guys, and really stick I do different is I don't run off on stick. I run my same skinny post. We don't look at it. It's decoy unless the corner falls down. So it's like peek at it. If the corner fell down, throw it right like immediately. But otherwise, they just know they're looking at it. It's what they catch the ball and they're looking, and then they're finding their accelerator, right? Now, snag, we all know is going to be sitting down, and usually there's let's say we put him over here or the T's over here. There's a flat route underneath it. The only difference is I don't run a corner from my inside guy. I love slot fade. And if you look back in this video, looking at the wrist coach slots, I call it Vegas is my slot fade. And if we ever signal it, anyone watching that we might play in the future, it slot fades that. Just letting you know. But box, I love box because it's such a great intermediate throw. And what it is I don't teach depth anymore. So like I don't say 10 yards. What I do is I work with these kids and I'll film them, all of my wide receivers, get with the wide receiver coach, and I'll say, okay, let's see how many outside steps it takes you to get to 10 yards. How many does it take you to get to 12 and 15 yards? And that's our baseline. Or 5, 10, 12, 15. That's what we want to know. And that's all they learn, right? And so when they know that we run box, for most of them, at the varsity level, this is going to be a fourth outside step dig. And it's a speed dig. I'm not trying to beat the drums or any of the tech speak talk, clinic stuff. I'm just trying to get inside as fast as I can, but I got to stay flat, right? Used to, when I started running this was just an arrow, right? And it didn't time up well, because if this guy, we were looking to throw this off the break, and then his eyes would know as he's dropping, he's in a good position to drive on this. So what I started doing was instead attacking with 3 fire steps, right? Same that we do on our slant, our peak concept on the RPO. So it looks like RPO, and then you slant across the face. As soon as you feel like you're getting to his inside shoulder, punch down, keeping your eyes to the quarterback, and now you're working back out what I call a return route. So it's dig and return underneath. And really, anytime that you have a flat defender who feels like, okay, quick movement, he's moved inside, my eyes, I might push him or try to push him to the inside as I get my eyes to the quarterback, because I feel like I'm releasing him on a slant. But then as soon as he chops down, reworks the return, crosses my face, all right, that's 2 definitive actions I have to commit, right? And again, going off the years of watching film, working with kids at different high schools in different states, the psychology there tells me that one action might interest them, but if I get 2 actions, there's going to be buy-in. There's going to be commitment. He's going to say, oh, that's back to the flat. That's mine. He's going to open hips and trail it. And that's what I want is I'm trying to hit that window, but I'm making my quarterback look return to dig, right? So we're wanting to go first first here, seeing if we can get this easy throw to the flat. But we know we're trying to open up the dig. And that for me is box. And I don't know why Coach Matheson teaches it the way, or why he calls it that. But when I draw it up, because I had a quarterback this past season actually, when I was at Burton, and he was like, "Why do you call it box?" And I was like, "I don't know, but technically, I mean, you can draw a box in this, so I don't know. I might rename it in the future, but for now, it's just known as box, and I'm going to stick with it." Now, one thing that we'll get a right safety, left safety, and they'll go too high, and that's a box killer. Unless you have a pretty decent athlete here, doesn't have to be a burner, but just has to be good enough to get into his face at 10 to 12 yards as he's dropping. We just tag the go, and literally we tell him, again, if the safety falls down, you might get the ball, but maybe not because we're not even looking. I tell him that it's kind of unfair because usually he's going to sprint inside the box to make a block. This one, you're going to have to run 12 to 15 yards to technically block him just by running him off. So he knows that he's that's what I call a good teammate route, pretty much. So that's box when we're looking at single high or too high. Now, for me, moving off of that, next progression is pig, Mills concept to us coaches. I will tag, whatever on this backside. Could be slant, could be, quick fire steps. So, 3 big steps, 2 little as a fin, 5-step in. I used to do as a 5-yard in, but I like the timing of 5 steps now. I've kind of moved away from yard to just steps on a lot of the things I talk about. But whatever this gets tagged on the backside, he's got. Because a lot of the times, especially when you go winged trips, you're most likely going to get the lock with the safety kind of playing over, but they can shift a little bit more to this side, right? Because now they can go with a 4-3 type deal and still have some ways to move this where they've got the backside help can still be inside the hash with the right side help on the hash with a corner and 2, and still have enough in here to stop us, right, with run plays. So what I like is pig, and it's Mills concept, which is going to be 4 outside step. And this one we are looking to cut a little bit harder because we want it to feel like 2 vertical threats. And then this one is 4 outside step skinny post. And I always tell them, try not to cross the hash to your side unless we're obviously on the left or right hash. But if we're dead middle of the field, you want to stay so skinny that feels like an inside release go route. But to us, it's a post. We're just trying to really push that corner and safety off of their mark. And our read for this is always going to be 1, 2, and then whether we run return like a slam return or just a straight arrow, 3 in the flat. And that's Mills. I just call it pig because it's easier to remember post dig. And our kids don't have to really think about things. Same thing with what I call pale, which is post sail. So again, we're inside release, 4 outside steps. Now we're going to be kind of like that circus route, C route, burst corner, whatever semantic name that you want to toss in that but it's your inside release, pushing to 10 yards. So once you make that vertical set, but it's going to be 4th inside step because we're coming back out towards the corner. And I tell them front pylon. Okay. because if I say 45-degree angle, 99.999% of the time, it's going to look like this or it's going to look like this. Not that they don't know what 45 degrees is, but when they're sprinting and running, so they just get used to, on my vertical run, after I'm inside release vertical run, my fourth inside step for this corner, I'm using my head to find, and that's what we train the landmark, front pylon, push at it. And now I'm looking on the outside shoulder, where the ball. Now, again, we can have this come, whoever we tag for the under knows, they know they've got to get into the flat to the side, right? So if we call this, we sail H and it's to the right, and we give the signal to the right, wherever they're lined up in the box, they know they've got to get to the flat on this side. And again, we're just still going 1, 2, 3 to the flat. So I keep everything very simple, because I am a non-faculty guy. I'm a marketing strategist by trade. And what that means is that in my career, I grow businesses. And in my marketing career, I've generated over $1 billion in revenue with the companies I've worked with. How I do that is finding the minimal, basic, repeatable things that make things very efficient. And all I do as a coach is take everything that I do in the business world and I apply it to football. And that's why I continue to streamline everything. Obviously we all want to get better at what we do. But I think that there's always that really weird line that you can cross as a coach. And I say weird line because you think you're doing good because you're expanding like your approach and your take and this play and this version and this route and this thing, but you end up losing the base of how does, it's a famous business saying, but for any of you that watch football podcasts outside of Coach Steve, Joe Daniels, right? Coach Daniels talks about this a lot, the levers principle for his defense, right? So the umbrella and levers. And he got that from the business world for his business. And it's the same thing that I do. Like if I pull one lever, how does it affect this other one? So then I've got to move that lever, right? So you always want to stay in balance. And I think that's kind of the problem. And again, like guilty here, it's the same thing that we all face, is that we want to continue to make ourselves better. And sometimes we think being better is what can I put in, instead of addition by subtraction is what can I remove to make this the least common denominator, right? Or what we call in the business world for products, minimum viable product. I just flip it over to minimum viable playbook, right? So like inside run, outside run, sweep, one read, one RPO, one quick, one vertical, one intermediate, right? That could be an entire playbook. And you could run that and have it be successful because, again, it's not. And I think we talked about this even years ago. It was a snippet because I've always talked about this, the Jimmies and Joes versus X's and O's. I still, to this day, don't think that a Jimmies and Joes team can always just win, right? Because my Jimmies and Joes may not be as strong as yours, but it's always the Jimmies and Joes that understand the X's and O's will play faster. And you might have a man up on me, right? From a physical standpoint or a speed standpoint. But if I am a man up advantage up top, then my kids are going to play faster because they're thinking much less, right? So again, going into the psychology of everything, when you start to deal with cognitive dissonance and a lot of the technical terms for psychology of not just business growth, but human development and all of these things, when you get into understanding how to play that game with the least amount of plays that you can put into a playbook, things are so much better for you. So I used to be run, 40,000 formations. Now I run all of this stuff out of minimum formations because I think it's easier for my quarterback. If I'm constantly changing my formations, I'm going to change the picture, right? So when I'm talking about changing the picture is looking out the window, right? So this is the window that my quarterback looks at. And as coaches, we think that, oh man, my quarterback sees everything out this front window, right? And he sees trees over here and mountains and hills and all this. When in reality, even with a really good high school quarterback, and honest to God, like 0.1% of you have the dudes that can go play P4 on Saturday, they're going to be looking at maybe this much of a window ever. They're never going to see all of this. So how do I influence as a coach what this guy sees consistently in this part of the window that I know that he can see? And I've come to the conclusion for myself, and doesn't mean it's the right way, but it's the right way for the way I teach, is I've gotten rid of tons of formations so that I'm not changing the way that the defense looks. So that way, if he sees a really big change, immediately knows it, right? And then can begin to process, okay, where's this? Where's the count? Where's the box? Something I wish I had time to talk about today, along with pass game, is the triangle method that I picked up from Jeff Mullen. I think the Big O system, the triangle method that he does. Have you ever looked into that or heard him talk about that?
I have a little bit. I haven't deep dove into it, but I've seen clips of it.
You've got to just, and if you want to, we'll get together and talk about it. But guys, like from a pass standpoint, it's amazing, right? So I know that if I've got 5 linemen, that's 6 gaps. So they got to give me, let's say they just go, they're 3 tech to the sniffer, right? So 1 or 2 eye is here. Okay, 6 gaps. There's gonna be at least a right and left backer in the box. Okay, otherwise they can't defend the 6 gaps. Okay, technically, yes, I know someone somewhere in Coachland is like, well, you technically have 7 with a wing. Okay, I get it, but they can play another guy here with 4 over 3. But here's the crazy thing. So, you got 6 to stop 5 or 6 to stop 6 gaps for runs. There's going to be 2 corners, right? So, you're going to have a L1, R1. And then that is 8. So wherever the other 3 are is going to tip your hat. And now I've started teaching from this triangle perspective and trying to coach it from that perspective. And if I've got time here in a second, after I go over just the way we run peel post wheel, but it's just vertical switch for us. I'll show some screenshots that I've got inside of my PowerPoint. But literally, if you take these 6, say they put a mic in here, okay, and then they have a single high free, and they put an R2 out here. What I'd teach is that we always anchor this guy as the triangle in the box. Okay, that way we know that the left and right are going to be responsible for the B. Most of the time he's going to be out, but I just anchor the triangle here. That way we know that it anchors to the middle. And now I know that if I'm, right middle here, this is a lot of space if this kid's off. So then now, and I'll show it here in a second. Before I get too far ahead of myself, we'll go over peel and then talk about that, because that is something that would be interesting for guys to look at if they don't know that count. So I went over pig, post dig, mills concept, pale, which is sail for most people. A lot of people will call sail flood. It's semantics because sometimes they'll give them like, if it's capped, break it off or whatever. I just teach the corner. I want you to aim for the pylon, because I know that we're going to get a certain play in the hip movement on that corner from our post route, just because I always teach throw the post is first progression. So when you catch and you're plant 1, 2, 3 on that third one, I'm ready. If I feel like I've got an inside go, right, in that picture, right, looking through that window, if I'm looking at it and if I don't see a free safety color jersey in here, white or whatever their home is, opposite color, I'm firing that sucker. We're throwing it right down the hash. That's what I want. And I used to not do that, but Joe Salas converted me into this whole way. He still teaches traditional names and stuff, but I just kind of gravitated a little bit more towards the post and just changed the names of my concepts, so that instead of teaching it as sail, it's pale, right? But that way we know we're stressing that P for post all the time. So peel, you guys, I mean, it's basic. I don't really need to go over this one, but I will say this. Inside release, 4 outside step, skinny post. If at this moment he sees this guy, because if he's reading quarterback drop and the eyes are this way on the drop and he's trying to get over top, he has the ability to dig this up. Okay. And then again, if they rotate, right, if there's a rotation of any kind, right, if there's another safety and they're trying to rotate hard to this and they get another drop, and he runs his 3-step push off and then gets on the wheel, he has, if this is capped, right, and again, I don't want to get into a bunch of R4 stuff, but all I teach is that capped means someone's in the space or threatening the space, like their body movement's going that way. Then he has the ability to just hitch it up. And then I always tell him, you have to be able to see the quarterback's eyes, right? Find the front of his face mask. If you can't see that, he can't see you. Move, right? Because if you hitch this up, 99% of the time, that's an easy dump off ball, because that guy is out, this guy is out, and there's going to be a ton of room, because most of the time, again, we're in the flat here. So I keep, when people watch this stuff and talk to me, they're like, that seems very simple. And yeah, that I do it for a reason. And it's not like, I'm not the guy to go to if you want to really learn the air raid. Like, I can teach you air raid because I'm an air raid guy. But it's all hybridized, and I've just kind of evolved it to where what I do fits the kids that I know that I'll have, or I know how to adapt it to the kids that I will have, if that makes sense. So that is the vertical pass game. And another thing real quick before we go into the triangle is I also, good coaches always beg, steal, borrow. Okay. Beg, borrow, and steal. Joe Salas, again, coach, has a great way he teaches this. I don't run verts anymore. So like the 6 route, the concept, I don't run 6 anymore. We call it shot. We used to do a hand signal for John Cena. You can't see me. It was literally like, you can't guard me. And it's 1-on-1. And so, like, say we're in X twins, right? So now the Z is to the left. The inside guy, and even if it's in trips, right? So if we tag him to run the 1-on-1 with a safety, we're just trying to cross face and influence the safety. Like, so whoever we're reading for the vert, okay? So let's say we're too high. So we have a left safety, we have a corner. We get 2 verticals. He's got a lock, right? And we teach this. You're going to sit down at 12. All we do is we run straight at this safety and we bend it in just to hold it just a second to see if we got this shot over the top. And then again, we'll have slant or a leak on this from the tee. But shot for us replaced 6. And then, like I told you guys, Vegas for us is slot fade. And that's just straight up. If you've got, and I like it against single high 100%. If I get the corner at 7 and I push hard and sit in the middle, I tell them just always sit in the middle of the sidewalk at your 5-yard mark. And usually that's about 2 outside steps. So we're 2 outside here. And then the same thing, I'm just aiming for crossing the line from the alley to the sidewalk. That way, I'm pushing away from this safety, and our Q will either flash fake or whatever, just to hold this for a second. And I'm just looking to see what kind of drop we get. And I don't even teach a drop on Vegas. We're going to play action or like a quick just turn, but my eyes I'm not even looking at the running back. I'm not even putting the ball out. I'm putting it in my basket. He's crossing face. It looks run action just to hold. And then we're off and we're in throwing motion. And I tell them, we work on this. We want to set our feet to the middle of this. So that way, if I need to push the ball deep, it's a very quick fix. I don't have to look here first, or I'm not looking here first, then fixing my feet. I have my feet to the middle so that it's a quick turn to fire the ball either way that I need to go. So stick and snag again. I went over those earlier. I'm not going to teach about that today because you guys can find all kinds of people who are much, much more qualified to go way in depth on that than I ever would. So let me pull up this because we're now in the last 10 minutes. All right, so here, let me do this. Can you see that on the screen?
Oh, yeah, I can see it.
Okay, so when we're talking about this kind of gives you an idea of the 6 plus 2, with the triangle being the other 3. I got it from him. I think he has a video that you can get on CoachTube that talks about it, that goes in depth, but it pretty much covers what I'm giving you here. There aren't really any secrets to it, but I just started teaching from this way. And I started doing this because of the way that teams started adjusting to the wide splits. And pause, look at this if you want to, but I'm going to go on so I can show. I know that's pretty small. Let me zoom in. Does that work?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay, so this is real end of the year, this past season, to show like what it actually looks like in real life when we say this is our triangle. So when they go too high, I always say X bottom of the numbers or on numbers. We usually try to stay on numbers or try to stay bottom of the numbers. Y always on numbers or bottom of the numbers. I like to get that Tennessee effect. The teams that are using like the very wide splits. And you might think, well, I don't know if my guys got the art. Look, it's not that far, right? Like it does enough. And when you approach it this way, again, you go back into this thing where it just makes the window, the picture, that much clearer. The count is much easier. It's so much easier to do. So this was a pre-snap where they were 4-3, trying to like come up with a way that they could take away the vertical game to our twins, but also have a safety to roll down because we were running same side power right here a lot. I need to get a drink. Sponsored by Coca-Cola today. So yeah. So that way I want guys to look at the stuff I put on here, and then I shared these screenshots because it's not that I just made that up. Like the stuff in the teaching slide for players is pulled from actual, footage, game footage where I show the screenshots. So again, here is technically considered nearly an 8-man box. They're just playing really wide ends, right? But this lets me know, like, we could easily ISO right here, even though it makes things so much better when you know where the focus is. And he goes into a thing, if you want to reach out to me, because I've kind of evolved it into my own thing where how the triangle points up or down lets you know whether like if it's pass focus, run focus. I've kind of taken his concept of the triangle method that he teaches and kind of evolved it into my system so that, there's, again, trying to remove all of the kids, catching the snap with their hands out. The less that I have to them to think, the better off we are. So I'm showing 3 minutes left. Any questions, Coach, on anything that you want me to touch back on? Or I tried to fill up time the best that I could because I knew that it was going to be an hour. I didn't want there to be any dead space in case someone is taking up their Saturday to blitz along this stuff on YouTube or wherever you're putting. And just wanted to make sure that I had enough to go over, but we kind of bounced around a little bit. But if you have any questions, I'll spend the last couple of minutes that you got going over
them. You were talking about your tags.
Yeah.
So when you have a concept, it's a play. When you tag it, is it to the right, to the left? How are you telling them it's the right or the left? Does it change it that much?
I mean, you can do it like, here's a couple of examples. We've used, well, when I say we, it's I, but I always say we as in a coaching staff, because no matter where I'm coordinating, I'm not doing it by myself. So we, as a different staff at the schools I've been, have done everything from left and right has been NBA or NFL, right? So like NFL would be to the right and NBA to the left, or even as simple as like tagging in the play or signaling in the play with boards and giving thumbs up is your right, thumbs left, or thumbs down is left, right? So like right, left. I've even used the series, like there's been games and even years where going back to that risk coach, here. So like if I wanted to call Buck to the left, and I just wanted it to be normal Buck, right? So I can call it 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So I have 5 ways to call it. But if I go 110, so 110 Buck to the left, 210 Buck to the right, 310 Buck to the left, 410, or 411, 412, 430. So like there's several ways to do it. You just have to get creative. Again, find the median line of IQ on your football team, and then whoever that kid is, go like 3 levels down from him and then put everything where he can understand it. And then everyone above him will be good. Anyone below it, you spend the extra time on. Right. And that's just my approach. And all of us have taught high school kids long enough, unless you just started coaching yesterday or last year. It just seems like the longer that I do this, the more bizarre the excuses and the questions get into my career of how am I supposed to remember that, Coach? Well, to all of you coaches, that's how I've ended up on pig post dig, because it just, I just try to keep it that simple. And that's why, like my run tags, right? So if I call cat, cage, chop, Even garbage is one that I'm really loving as a Q counter run, where it looks like pass. It's almost like Q draw, but it's guard and running back garbage. So the guard is going to kick, the running back's going to go straight downhill like he's running the ball, but then he's blocking like the H would, like a sniffer would on true GH counter or GY counter, however you tag your personnel, right? That's probably, and again, anyone looking at the run game, I kind of break up counter and GT into two different runs, which technically we all know GT counter, GH counter, it's all counter, but I split it up because I still carry crisscross from Buck. So when I run that, they always know counter is going to be GH, 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 unless it's tagged. Because I will put the H on the line as a tight end and bring in a second running back, the bigger running back that I have, or like that outside linebacker type that you have. It depends on what side of school you're at. Obviously, but put that dude at the wing, right, to run buck sweep, and then crisscross handoff. I still pull that out, like I still have it. And I think that probably that and just straight up Q belly ISO, like straight dive lead ISO with the T, is about the only thing that lets me keep carrying a wing T card. Outside of that, I don't get invited to the special club anymore. Although I got to get back with Coach Chip. He reached out to me right before I went to Vegas last month, wanting to talk some wing T ball, and I was like, yes, like I'm still in the club. Like even Coach Chip's reaching out to me, but I got so busy with work and things when we came back from that event that is just, it's crazy. So, but you got to jump through some hoops to keep your, card carrying membership with both sides of the aisle, because they, I think it's died down. I think the most heated now is inside zone and duo.
Yep.
I think that's if anyone sees my responses on X, I just call it Dizzo if I have it in my playbook. And that way it's just all inclusive and we all get along. And I don't have to argue in a staff meeting about the footsteps of some guy on the backside. It's just Dizzo. However it works, it works. I don't care. I just want double teams. Just move it.
Yeah, I think I posted that. I think it was 2021, 2022. I think I put two pictures. I put a picture up. I said, in your playbook, is it inside zone or duo? And I wasn't doing nothing to stir the pot. I was just generally.
Yeah.
And that was probably my most viral post of all time, because people said inside zone. Then people said, well, the way you have the running back going, it means it's this, it's not this. And some people said, well, that's not inside zone, that's mid zone, not even any of that. And I said, well, what's the difference? And like, it just became a thing. So I was like, all right, I can never do that again of posting that, because, and then I'm glad that the duo people aren't too crazy when you talk to coaches, because they're just like, hey, call it whatever you want. Just tell the running back in inside zone he's reading this, and duo he's reading that. And you can run duo on same side, and they were very cool about it. So I was like, all right. That.
So last thing, if I do inside zone duo and I don't split them up, guys, and this is this, but if I were to, using the rules that I use, and a lot of you O-line coaches will light me on fire for this, I don't care. Okay. Because it's the easiest way to do it. If I'm blocking duo, okay, all right, it's always, the rules are gap away, help to play. Meaning that if you don't have anything in your backside gap, you're going to double to the play side. Period. That's it. Inside zone, if I switch it, I just exchange these two words. That's it. Because now my linemen are tracking to the play. And if they don't have somebody, they help away, and then they work to the linebacker. That's it. I have been around long enough to know that my rules are very, very simple, and there's like all kinds of room for interpretation. And I understand that, but for me, that's the easiest way to get two junior linemen go down. We have to play one freshman, one sophomore, who both of them are mediocre. And I'm not, this is not a real scenario, but the hypotheticals that we have to think about, what's the easiest thing for those guys to remember on a Friday night? And it's just gap away, help to play, or help away, gap to play, whatever. Like I just flip the things, right? So I try to keep it as simple as possible.
Oh, I had to do that this year at the inside zone. They couldn't understand double teams. Don't know why. They just didn't. So I finally just said old school. Step with your right foot, step with your left foot. Whoever shows up, take them. I don't
Yeah.
care. And guess what? It worked because I had all senior linemen last year except one. So I had to replace 4 positions. So then I realized, oh, they don't get it. So we're going to go old school. And same thing with like wide zone. They couldn't understand the little short steps. I finally said, screw it. Open up like outside zone and try to get there. We're just going to call it wide zone, though. I never posted that anywhere because I would have gotten killed on X if I posted that.
Yeah. I always dip into those conversations with my Dizzo comment for duo inside zone, and then I dip it right out. And I don't say anything else because I like to keep friends. And that's like showing up to your family reunion and being like, so who'd you vote for? Right. So it's like literally the same thing. So I'm not going to do that. So yeah. And what I have talked about, all of you O-line guys, just show me some love. Give me a hall pass, because it's just, it's what this is how I've gravitated to this, because I like to play as simple as possible, and coach as simple as possible.
Right. That's all you have to do. If it's simple, they can play fast. That's what we're trying to do. Well, Coach, I appreciate you coming on here presenting this today on this Saturday. It was awesome. Guys, check out his stuff. Reach out to him. He always talks ball with people. But I appreciate you doing this.
Yeah. And again, on X, Wing Raid Coach, and he'll do all the stuff. He's good with making sure. But honestly, listen, if you're seeing this, even if it's 2 to 3 years from now, I'm still going to want to talk football. Just send me a message. Don't care what level you're at. Don't care how much experience you have. I'm an open book. I'll throw whatever I have at you. I don't have anything on Coach Tube anymore. I think there might still be something there. Again, I think it was like $25 a time. Don't even buy that. Just reach out to me. I'll talk ball with you. If you want to throw some money, whatever. But I really enjoy diving into X's and O's.
Yep, awesome. Well, Coach, that was great. Thank you so much.
All right. See you.
Oh.